That night, I was certain it was my wife's touch, her lips, her whisper. When I blinked, though, it wasn't her at all, and I didn't stop him. From that moment, my world unraveled. It all began when Julia finally went to see her sister after months away. I never expected anything to happen while Julia was away. The plan was simple. She'd be gone for a few days visiting her sister. I'd get some much-needed quiet, and Tyler would do what Tyler always did. Stay in his room and barely say a word. That's how it usually went in this house. Predictable, uneventful still. But this time, something about the air felt different the second she pulled out of the driveway. But at that time, I didn't even know what was coming. I stood at the front door a little longer than I meant to, watching her tail lights vanish down the street, blinking against the fading sun until the car disappeared around the bend. The silence that settled in after that was thick, too thick, almost unnatural. It clung to the walls like a warning, like the house itself was holding its breath. I didn't move right away. I just stood there with my hand still on the doorknob, staring into the quiet like I expected something else to come walking up behind me. Eventually, I turned back inside, closing the door gently behind me. The lock clicked louder than usual, and for a moment I just stood in the hallway listening. But all I could hear was the soft hum of the fridge, the distant ticking of the living room clock, and my own pulse, steady but not calm. Tyler didn't come downstairs right away, which didn't surprise me. At 21, he'd mastered the art of vanishing inside his room for hours at a time. He was quiet, private, and oddly distant. Not rude, just unreadable. Even after 3 years of living under the same roof, I still couldn't say I really knew him. He never caused trouble, never talked back, never gave me a reason to push. Julia called it maturity. I called it a mystery. But there were moments, small, fleeting, when I'd catch him watching me. Not casually, not distracted, intently like he was studying me. And the second I noticed, he'd look away like nothing had happened. But something always lingered after those glances. Something I didn't know how to name. And something I never mentioned out loud because maybe I didn't want to know what it meant. Not yet. Around 7 o'clock, he finally appeared. I was setting the table with leftover pasta and a half-open bottle of wine, trying to keep things casual. He didn't say much, just nodded, sat down across from me and started eating. I filled the silence with some pointless comment about the weather, something about rain tomorrow. He nodded again but didn't look up from his plate. There was something in his posture that felt different, less withdrawn, more present. I kept my focus on the food, but I could feel his eyes on me. Not a glance, not a flicker. No, it was steady like he was studying me. And I don't know why, but I didn't say anything. I just let it happen. Maybe I thought I was imagining it. Maybe I didn't want to admit that it made my skin prickle. After dinner, I rinsed the dishes while Tyler disappeared back into his room. I didn't see him again for the rest of the evening. I figured he'd be gaming, texting, doing whatever 21-year-olds did to kill time. I poured myself another glass of wine, sat on the couch, and tried to distract myself with a movie I didn't care about. But I couldn't shake the way he'd looked at me. This was the night everything started. I went to bed around midnight. The house was quiet again, almost too quiet. Julia's side of the bed was still made, untouched. I pulled the covers back and slid in, letting the cold sheets wrap around me. For the first time in a while, I felt tired enough to sleep without tossing. It was sometime after 2 a.m. when I woke up. Not from a sound, not exactly. It was more a feeling like someone was near me watching. The air felt different, charged somehow. I blinked into the darkness, not moving at first, my ears straining for any sound. I told myself I was imagining it, that the wine and the silence were messing with my head. But then I heard it. Soft footsteps, the barest whisper of movement against the hardwood. Slow, measured, coming from the hall. I tensed, still pretending to be asleep, unsure if I should turn or call out. The footsteps stopped just outside the door. I heard the creak of the floorboard, the one just to the left of the threshold, and then the door opened. I held my breath. The room stayed dark. No light, no voice, just the sound of someone stepping inside. So carefully, it made the hairs on the back of my neck rise. The door clicked softly shut. Then came the pressure on the mattress. The bed dipped beside me, slow and deliberate. I didn't move. My mind screamed at me to turn on the light, to say something, to react. But I didn't, because part of me already knew who it was. And I didn't know what scared me more. The idea of being right or being wrong. A warm hand touched my arm gently, like Julia used to when she wanted to wake me without words. The touch glided down slowly, fingers barely grazing my skin. "Julia?" I whispered, the name catching in my throat like a plea, but there was no answer, just a breath, soft, warm, near my ear. Then came the kiss, light, careful, on my cheek, just at the edge of my jaw. My eyes flew open. The moonlight sliced a silver line across the room, just enough to illuminate the shadow hovering beside me. His face was close, too close. And it wasn't Julia, it was Tyler. His expression didn't change. He didn't look shocked or guilty. He just looked at me, calm, composed. His breath was steady. Mine wasn't. I sat up halfway, my voice caught somewhere between a whisper and a warning, but no words came. I just stared at him, at the impossible, terrifying truth of it. He leaned back slowly, watching me. Then, without a single word, he stood, turned, and walked out of the room like nothing had happened. And I didn't stop him. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just stared at the empty doorway, because deep down, I knew this moment was just the beginning. The next morning came too quickly. I didn't remember falling asleep. Just remember lying there for what felt like hours, staring at the ceiling, the image of Tyler's face refusing to leave my mind. Every time I blinked, I saw it again. That quiet expression, that calm, eerie stillness in his eyes. The way he had kissed me in the dark, like it was nothing, like he knew exactly what he was doing. I told myself it was a dream. It had to be something weird my subconscious conjured up in the middle of the night. That's what I clung to as I splashed cold water on my face in the bathroom, hoping to jolt the memory out of me. But the feeling was still there. The warmth of his breath, the weight of the mattress dipping beside me, the way he hadn't said a single word. No, it wasn't a dream. When I finally made my way to the kitchen, Tyler was already there. He stood at the counter in a hoodie and sweatpants, pouring cereal into a bowl like it was just any other day. He looked up as I walked in, met my eyes for a second, then offered a casual, almost too casual, "Morning." "Morning," I replied, my voice a little too tight. I waited for something, some explanation, some hint of acknowledgement, but he just sat down and started eating. No tension in his shoulders, no guilt in his eyes, just the same unreadable calm. If I hadn't known what happened the night before, I'd think this was just a normal morning. But I knew better now. As I made coffee, I couldn't help but watch him. The way he sat, the slight smirk at the corner of his mouth that didn't quite reach his eyes, the way he kept his gaze deliberately on his bowl. He was too still, too composed. It was like he wanted me to notice how unaffected he was. "Did you sleep all right?" I asked, keeping my tone as neutral as I could. He nodded. "Yeah, you?" I hesitated. "Fine." His spoon clinked softly against the side of the bowl, and I swore I saw the faintest twitch of amusement on his lips. He knew I wasn't fine. He knew exactly what he'd done to me. The day dragged on in a haze. I tried to work, tried to keep my mind off him, but every time I passed by his door, I tensed. Every time I heard a floorboard creak upstairs, my chest tightened. I couldn't stop remembering the feel of his hand, the way he kissed me like he knew how I'd respond. That evening I made dinner. Tyler joined without being asked. He even helped set the table. Julia had always joked that he never lifted a finger unless she nagged him. So why now? He sat directly across from me again. Our eyes met more than once during the meal, and each time I looked away first. There was something in the way he watched me. Curious, amused, like he was waiting for me to say something. But I didn't. I couldn't. It wasn't until I was washing dishes that I noticed it. His voice. He said something from the table, something small, something forgettable, but the tone stopped me cold. The cadence, the way his voice softened near the end of the sentence. It was almost identical to how Julia spoke. The same rhythm, the same inflection. It sent a chill down my spine. Was he doing it on purpose? I dried my hands, turned to face him. "Tyler, can we talk?" He didn't flinch. "Sure." "What about?" "You know what about?" He raised an eyebrow almost playfully. "Number, I don't think I do." I took a step closer. Last night. He leaned back in the chair, arms folded loosely across his chest. What about it? I searched his face for something. Shame, fear, regret, but found nothing. Just that same calm amusement. You came into my room. He tilted his head. Did I? I swallowed hard. Don't play games with me. I'm not. He stood up slowly, walking toward the doorway. Maybe you just had a dream. And just like that again he left the room. I stood there frozen, fists clenched at my sides. Rage bubbled just beneath my skin. Not just at him but at myself. Because he was right about one thing. I hadn't stopped him. That night I locked my door. It made me feel foolish, juvenile. But I needed the barrier. I needed some distance. I turned out the lights and lay there staring into the dark, trying not to think about his voice, his touch, his silence. Sometime past midnight I heard it. A faint tap, just one, on the other side of the door, followed by the softest click. I shot upright in bed, my heart thundering, only to see that the door was still shut. I got up, moved slowly across the room and pressed my ear to the door. Nothing. Still, I twisted the lock again just to be sure. But when I turned around, something stopped me. There on the foot of my bed lay one of Julia's silk robes. The pale one she wore around the house. The one she'd packed for her trip. I hadn't put it there. I stared at it like it might move. Like it might disappear if I blinked. But it didn't. It stayed exactly where he'd left it. A message. A game. A line crossed even deeper than before. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that didn't feel natural. Like the walls were holding their breath. I'd been lying in bed for what felt like hours, heart racing with every creak, every shadow. The silk robe was still folded at the foot of the bed, untouched but unavoidable. Like it had weight even without anyone wearing it. And then I heard it. The door unlocked, not flung open, not slammed. Just that slow, deliberate turn of the handle, the kind that says, I know you're awake. I didn't move, didn't even flinch. My body stayed rigid beneath the blanket, eyes open, locked on the ceiling. The air shifted as he stepped inside like the temperature dropped a few degrees. I felt him pause near the doorway, just standing there watching, waiting, and then his voice, soft, slow, familiar. Baby, he whispered. Are you still awake? It was her voice, the cadence, the softness, the exact way Julia used to speak when she wanted something late at night, when she didn't want to wake me but didn't want to sleep alone. Every syllable was hers, but it wasn't her. Tyler's voice echoed from the dark like a performance he'd been rehearsing for months. He moved closer, the floorboards creaking under his bare feet. I felt the edge of the bed dip again. The mattress folded under his weight. His hand grazed my arm. You miss this, don't you? He whispered. Miss how she touched you. Miss how she made you feel. I shut my eyes. Stop. But the word came out thin, weak, not a command, barely a plea. His hand moved up over my shoulder, slow and steady, like he already knew I wouldn't push him away. His fingers brushed along my neck, then down to my chest, the touch light but purposeful. The way Julia used to touch me when she didn't want words. You don't have to pretend, he said, and I felt his breath at my jaw. You don't have to be lonely. I turned my head slightly. This isn't you. No, he murmured. It's her. Isn't that what you want? My stomach twisted. My breath hitched. I could have stopped him then. Could have shouted. Could have shoved him off the bed. But I didn't because his touch was familiar. And in the dark, his voice sounded like hers. Felt like hers. My mind screamed, get up. My body whispered, just one more second. He leaned closer, lips brushing my ear. I know how she made you feel. I've seen it. Heard it. I know the sounds you make when you think no one's listening. Tyler, I started, but his lips pressed against my neck and the word unraveled in my mouth. I can be her, he said again, lower this time, slower. Let me be her just for tonight. The words cut through something in me, something buried and shameful and desperate. The loneliness I hadn't spoken of, the ache I hadn't dared name. And the worst part, he saw it, knew it, used it. He climbed higher onto the bed, straddling me now. The robe, the one that wasn't supposed to be here, slid across my legs as he moved. I could feel the smooth silk against my skin. Could smell her perfume faintly on his chest. His hands, steady and sure, moved under the blanket, pressing into my sides, my ribs. Not rough, not forceful, gentle, calculated, seductive. "Don't fight me," he whispered. "You don't want to." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My head was spinning. The room tilting in some slow, terrifying swirl of memory and fantasy. And then he kissed me. Not hard, not fast, but exactly the way Julia used to. Slow, full, knowing. And I kissed him back. I don't know when the switch happened, when resistance gave way to surrender, when guilt blurred into hunger. I just know that somewhere in the dark, I stopped saying no and started saying nothing at all. His breath hitched when my hands gripped his waist. His mouth moved to my neck. And for a moment, just one heartbeat of denial, I let myself believe it was her. I closed my eyes, tried to forget, tried to pretend it was a dream, some twisted echo of loneliness and confusion. But then he leaned in, nose brushing mine, and whispered her name in my voice. "Julia." And I said it too. "Julia." Tyler didn't stop. If anything, he moved with more purpose, more clarity. His eyes found mine in the shadows, and I saw something there that didn't belong to Julia. Something darker, satisfied, triumphant. He didn't stop pretending, and I didn't stop him. The act unfolded slowly, painfully, a theater of shadows and whispers and soft gasps. His body moved with hers. His voice carried her sighs. And I let it, every second of it, because he wasn't forcing me. I was letting it happen. When it was over, he lay beside me, chest rising and falling, body close enough to feel every breath I took. Neither of us spoke. Not right away. There was too much between us now. Too much we couldn't take back. I couldn't look at him. Couldn't speak. I just stared at the ceiling, heart thudding, breath shallow, skin flushed with shame and heat. Then finally his voice broke the silence. Calm, steady, icy. "Now you know who I really am," he said. I turned my head slowly and you didn't stop me. I didn't answer him. I couldn't. The weight of his words settled over me like a second skin. Too tight, too suffocating to peel away. I turned my head back to the ceiling, trying to pretend that if I just stayed still long enough, I could make the night disappear. But the silence between us didn't fade. It deepened, thickened, wrapped around my throat like something alive. Tyler didn't move. He stayed beside me, his breathing steady, almost relaxed, like he hadn't just ripped a hole through everything I thought I knew about myself. My heart wouldn't slow. My body was still humming with the memory of him, his voice, his hands, the way he looked at me like he'd already won. And maybe he had. Eventually, I heard the soft creak of the mattress as he shifted, then the near silent whisper of his footsteps retreating into the hallway. The door didn't slam. He didn't say another word. He didn't need to. The damage was done. I lay there for a long time, unmoving. Not sure if I was more terrified of what had just happened or of the part of me that didn't regret it. The morning light made everything worse. It poured in through the blinds, soft and golden, the kind of light that normally felt peaceful. But nothing about that morning was peaceful. The bed felt too warm, the air too still. And I was alone. Alone with the scent of someone who shouldn't have been there. Alone with the memory of what I let happen. I sat up slowly, the sheets tangled around my legs like some kind of restraint I hadn't noticed until then. The robe was still on the floor, wrinkled and abandoned. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. I stared at it like it might accuse me. My heart was racing and yet I felt heavy, like I hadn't moved in hours. I rubbed my face hard, trying to scrub the memory away, but it was everywhere. On my skin, on my lips, in my head. Tyler's voice whispering her name. His mouth mimicked her sighs, his body pretending to be hers and mine letting it. I should have stopped him. I should have stopped myself. I dragged myself out of bed, pulled on the nearest shirt, and walked straight to the shower. The water was too hot. My skin turned red beneath it, but I didn't care. I just stood there letting it burn, hoping it would cleanse something that had already taken root too deep inside. Tyler wasn't in the kitchen that morning. He wasn't in the living room. He wasn't anywhere I could see. And somehow that was worse than if he'd been sitting there smiling, because the silence was a message. One I understood far too well. I avoided him all day. Didn't go near his room. Didn't speak. Didn't even breathe too loud. I needed space. I needed distance. but I could feel him. His presence. The weight of him everywhere. Every time I turned a corner, I expected him to be there. Every time the floor creaked, I froze. Every silence carried his breath. When Julia called, I flinched at the sound of her voice. She said she was coming home earlier than expected. Something about her sister canceling dinner plans. I told her that was fine, that everything was quiet here. She laughed and asked if Tyler was still being a ghost. I told her he was fine. I didn't know what else to say. By the time she walked through the door, the house had never felt smaller. She swept in with her usual warmth, kissed my cheek like always, dropped her bag in the hallway and kicked off her heels. Her presence was grounding. Or at least it should have been. But I couldn't look at her, not the same way. And when she called out for Tyler, I held my breath. He came downstairs like nothing had happened. Hoodie, slippers, calm. He hugged her, asked about her trip, even made her laugh. And when she wasn't looking, he glanced at me. One of those long, slow stares that meant, "You remember?" I didn't say a word. Dinner that night was normal. Too normal. We all sat at the table like a family. The conversation meandered through meaningless topics. Traffic, food, her sister's annoying new dog. Tyler barely said anything, but his silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt charged, waiting. I could barely eat. Every time I looked up, I saw the way his fingers played with the fork, slow and deliberate. The way his eyes moved to Julia's lips when she spoke. The way he smiled when she touched my hand across the table. And then the moment came. It was small, barely anything, just silence. A beat too long. Julia looked between us, eyes narrowing, playful but curious. "What's going on between you two?" I froze. My fork paused midair. Tyler smiled. I shook my head. "Nothing." "What?" She shrugged, sipping her wine. "You're both acting weird." Tyler let out a soft laugh. "Maybe we're just bonding." She laughed too, brushing it off, but I saw the flash of something in her eyes. Just a flicker, a crack. I got up first after dinner, claiming I had work to finish. I didn't. I just needed to breathe to get out of that room before something broke inside me, but I didn't make it far. As I turned the corner into the hallway, Tyler was already there, leaning against the wall like he'd been waiting for me. I tried to walk past him, but he stepped in close. Too close. "You okay?" he asked softly. I didn't answer. He leaned in, lips near my ear. "I can be her again tonight if you want." My stomach twisted. "Don't." He tilted his head. "Don't what?" "You know exactly what." He smiled again. Soft, intimate, dangerous. "You didn't say that last night." I pushed past him, heart slamming in my chest. I stumbled into the study, hands shaking, locking the door. Breathless, I reeled from what happened. Who was he? I should have refused, but I hadn't said a word. Julia slept soundly beside me, oblivious. Guilt gnawed at me, knowing what happened, fearing a repeat. I slipped away, unable to bear her trusting gaze. Silence cloaked my movements as I sat in the dark, replaying the mess. I knew he'd come. He appeared, a shadow in the doorway, Tyler. No games, no disguise. Just him. "You're going to want me as me?" he murmured. Paralyzed, I couldn't look at him. "I'm not pretending anymore." I stood, a weak leave escaping my lips. He advanced, eyes locked on mine. "But you don't want me to." Then his forceful kiss. Not soft but raw. I tried to push him away, but my hands clutched him closer. "Stop, Tyler." No space. His hot breath, his body pressed against mine. "You've already given me everything. Stop pretending you didn't want it." We crossed a line. "You did the second you kissed me back." His smug satisfaction twisted my stomach. "The second you whispered her name, knowing it wasn't her." Shame washed over me. "Stop," I choked. "You're sick." "I'm honest." He saw my hidden desires. "I want to replace her. She's my wife." "What do you want?" "Everything." I broke. "You chose this. You let me in. I'm not leaving." Fear and longing warred within me. "The real you," he whispered. "You made sure of that. The trap was sprung. Stay and be consumed or flee. What would you do?"